This has been an awesome conference. It's so fantastic to see all of you. We've got a really cool speaker next and some really exciting announcements. And then after that, we're going to take a break. So if you can hold on another 15, 20 minutes, you'll be released. But we've got a lady named Cathrin Stickney, and she's here to make an awesome announcement that Silicon Slopes is a big part of. And she's had a stellar career and is now founder of an organization called Parity.org. So please welcome to the stage, Cathrin Stickney. Welcome to Silicon Slopes.
Well, thank you so much.
So you've been looking forward to this day for 4 months or longer?
Quite a few months, actually.
Quite a few months?
Yes, at least 4 months.
So tell us about Parity.org.
Well, for those of you who don't know what Parity.org does, we ask companies to take the Parity Pledge to agree to interview at least one qualified woman for every position, vice president and above, which is absolutely...
There's one lady in here that heard that, and I think that's maybe it. So, Cathrin, why don't you say that again so people can respond?
So that there's that they interview at least one qualified woman for every role, vice president and above, including the board and the C-suite. So
let's hear that, right?
This is where the issue is the most acute for gender parity. So that's why we're focused there. But that's what the pledge is, and we're really proud of it.
So how did what's your background? How did this come about? What's your career look like that led you to this?
I have been in the healthcare industry as an executive leader for 30 years, and I've worked for public and private companies, and I have always tried to help one woman at a time advance in their career. At the pinnacle of my career, I had 2,700 employees, 7 vice presidents, half were women, half were men, and I was always trying to help them.
When I first met Cathrin, she wanted me to refer to her as badass. She's like, this is my stats. But yeah, I mean, killer career at the highest levels of the biggest organizations in the country. Yeah. And from the very first time I met you, this has been something that's been on your mind.
It is. I've always been a huge proponent of women advancing in their careers in business. And something happened at late 16 for me that when I read the World Economic Forum's projection for gender parity, in 2016, it was at least 100 years until we reached gender parity in the world. And that was true in the US as well. But just this last year, it's now gone to 175 years, so we're actually going backwards. But it was really the report in 2016 that prompted me to say, we really need to do something more than helping one woman at a time. We really need to speed this up. I want to see gender parity in my lifetime and not have to wait for my grandchildren's lifetime to do that.
So Cathrin and I met, I mentioned Mark Gorenberg earlier. I failed to mention a couple other people that have been really instrumental in getting Silicon Slopes where it is today. So certainly some of those initial sponsors that we had, we put out calendars for probably 10 years with sponsors all over it and sent it all over Silicon Valley, started getting people talking about it. Todd Peterson at Vivint was a big sponsor for a long time and always was supportive along with Science Bank. And then after I talked to Clint, I went over and talked to Ryan Smith over at Qualtrics. And it was really cool because he jumped in both feet. He's like, let's do this. Let's make this big. Let's make it inclusive. And then we went out to Aaron Sconard and Dave Elkington and Bateman and Corinne and a bunch of others. And it's really some of those first people that were so instrumental. And so Mark Gorenberg, who was my VC at Omniture and now also at DOMO, Mark was a lonely man out there in the world, and he met Cathrin on a plane, and now they're married.
Yes, about 18 months ago.
So I've become good
And-
friends with Cathrin.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that you and I first started this conversation at our first anniversary dinner in New York.
Yeah, so Cathrin and I have had a lot of, Mark gets us together, and then we end up in a corner somewhere talking about women in the workplace. And I'd ask her a bunch of questions, and sometimes ask questions that were maybe offensive, and she'd be like, no, you can't say that, or you can't say it like this, you need to think about it like that. I'm like, okay, teach me, because this is always, many of you know I have 6 daughters, so it's always been really an interesting topic to me, and I wanted to help out and do the right thing. And so let's talk a little bit about that one-year anniversary dinner that you and Mark had at the Met.
Well, I had been cogitating on this idea to do something bigger, broader than just one woman at a time. And I introduced it to you, and I remember the first thing you said, wow, Cathrin, if I was going to sign that pledge, it would have to really be seamless and easy and no quotas and, just trust that we'll do it. And you said, like the Rooney Rule, the NFL Rooney Rule. And just a light bulb went off, and I thought, that's the model. That's the model for this. And that's where this all started, was at that dinner, to take it on this path to get gender parity in corporations and do it in an easy, seamless way. And so, of course, Josh signed the pledge.
Signed the pledge, and so it was interesting as we kind of debated this and talked about it and explored it, the Rooney Rule is fascinating because I'm a huge fan of the NFL. I always wanted to be a middle linebacker. I always tell people I have the heart of a middle linebacker, just not the stature. And I watched the NFL, and I remember for a long time, it was 90% plus African Americans in the NFL and 0% African Americans as head coaches. And that had been like that for decades. And so the way they tried to combat that was you have to interview at least one African American. And so what happened is the teams started saying, well, we don't know them. We need to start building pipeline. We don't want to have a token interview. Like, if we're going to do this, we all know it's a good thing. Here's a vehicle for us to get to know more people. And that's what I noticed, is that the easy thing to do is to go to who you know. And so you've got to expand that network. And the Parity Pledge, the thing I like about it is it forces you to expand your natural network of maybe your friends or people that you hung out with before. And as men, if you're hiring other men, your other friends and people that you know, that's not going to be good enough. So to kind of break that mold is to say, okay, we got to build a pipeline. And I'm curious, what's been the responses you've gone out to? What's happened since that conversation?
Well, we started to form the company along that premise that we would do this. And by the way, I want to add that if you're not familiar with the Rooney Rule, in 3 years they had African American coaches and managers up to 22%. So it's such a short period of time to have that happen. But so since then, I've been building the company, creating it. I've had wonderful support, thank you, from DOMO and Method Communications and so many other companies that have really been supportive in bringing us along to create our website.
Yeah, right when we got back, I made a phone call. Qualtrics signed up immediately.
Yes.
Pluralsight signed up immediately. Vivint signed up.
Yeah.
I know Entrada signed up. Inside Sales signed up immediately.
It was all straight out of Utah.
We've got, I think, so how many?
To coin a phrase.
Straight out of Utah. How many signed up? So the announcements today, you're putting out a press release.
Yep.
How many companies do you have?
Right now we have over 80 companies in 4 months that have taken the Parity Pledge. We hope at the end of this conference that we can say many, many more beyond that, but we have quite a few, but half of them are from this great state of Utah.
How about that? Half the companies
Really
signed
amazing.
up from Silicon Valley.
Thank you to everybody.
So
I
40
actually
companies.
believe all of them are in this audience.
Yeah, so 40 companies here today. Those companies have signed up for the Parity Pledge, and it does make a difference. It does lead to change. We signed up for it a few months ago and started implementing it, and it does lead to change. We have conversations where we're interviewing someone for a VP role. A VP role pops up. We're like, oh, we need someone for that role. Oh, we know the perfect person. And we go after that one person, and we're like, oh, wait, maybe we can find a better person. And that's what it forces you to do. No one wants to interview someone for the sake of interviewing. So how can we find better people? And that's the thing that I think we've all noticed and why everyone's signed up for this. Not because it's the right thing to do, which of course it is, but it makes your companies better. It gives you more diversity of thought. It gives you better ideas. It makes you more compassionate. It makes you understand your employees better, understand your customers better. It's good for business. And that's why people do it. And this is a really simple way to take your company to that next level. So can we, you're showing the slide. Okay, so yeah, the logos are going in the back. Liv signed up for it. What are some other big companies that signed up for it,
We've got Adobe, of course, Best Buy.
Oh, Adobe signed up for it. Awesome.
Yes.
Adobe's got like 8,000, 10,000 employees.
Yes, absolutely. And we've got Best Buy, Ralph Lauren signed up, Cisco. We've got
Cisco's got a few employees. Best Buy has a few employees.
Yes. R.R. Donnelley. So we've got quite a few S&P 500 companies, and tech has been a huge supporter of the Parity Pledge and recognizing the importance and really the value to their business to bring more women into not just the board but the C-suite and vice presidents as well.
Yeah. So hopefully, it certainly makes us excited as we sit around. We talk about what you saw this morning, people getting up and talking about the different issues that face Silicon Slopes and how can we make this a better place to do business, to make our companies more successful. And this is something we often talk about as various CEOs get together and other executives. It's something we always talk about. It's something I know that all of us talk about inside our own companies. A lot of the companies that you see up here, this is just one of many things that they're doing to try to increase diversity.
Right.
And I would love to hear some of the backstories about Best Buy, Ralph Lauren.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's others you can tell us about.
It's actually been a lot of fun to go out and talk to companies and encourage them to take the pledge. And I've flown all over the country, talked to hundreds of companies now, learned about their great diversity programs, what they're doing. And for many of them, this message about gender parity at the very top of the company, where the real issues are, has resonated with them. And I remember reaching out to Hubert Joly, who is the CEO of Best Buy, for an introduction. And frankly, this is how I've gotten all the pledges, is through introductions or someone talking to someone. And Hubert introduced me to Patrice Louvet, who's the CEO of Ralph Lauren. So I flew to New York, met with Patrice and his team, his HR and diversity team. They have fabulous programs, as does Best Buy. And they said, we love this. We have over 60%, over 50% of their workforce is women. They want to attract more women to their company. Certainly their customer base is heavily women. And they said this makes a lot of sense for our diversity program. And within a week they signed, and right after they signed, Hubert Joly signed. So we're really pleased with that kind of an outpouring. Lyft was after our great Silicon Slopes, Utah outpouring of signing the pledge. Lyft was the first one outside of Utah to take the pledge, and we were really pleased to get them. In fact, Ron Storn, who's the head of HR, head of people and talent for them, he took the individual pledge, which is something we have available too. But they're very dedicated, and again, each of these companies has great diversity programs. And this was just something that is a focus that wasn't part of their diversity program necessarily. And they wanted to really make a statement, send a message to not only their employees, but to the public.
Well, I know that in my experience in my companies, whenever we hire women to lead an organization, it's really interesting to see how many women they hire. And that's why this is so important. And it's the same thing that you saw in the NFL. Not only are you building pipeline, but it makes women and people that are diverse understand this is an organization that is looking for the best talent across
Yeah.
every platform and every group of people.
And there's a business case to be made for it. Numerous studies out there, and I'm talking recent studies over the last few years, that show that when you have a balanced, gender diverse workforce, and particularly the C-suite and the board, companies that have that show a 15% increase in profitability over companies who don't have that. You can go out online and see these studies, but it's truly, I think Corinne Clark mentioned, there's a business case around this, and that really is the business case. It's not only the right thing to do, it's a smart thing to do to bring women into your organization. And when you bring them into the board, you find that as women are on the board, that more women are hired in the C-suite. And as more women are hired in the C-suite, more women are hired in the company. And you've got this virtuous cycle that goes when you start bringing women in these senior roles. It really, what goes around comes around, and you end up with a very diverse, positive organization as a result of it.
Yeah, we've come a long way from companies going public with big tech companies going public with 0 female members on their board,
yes,
which is even happening a few years ago, and I don't think that's going to happen anymore.
No, I agree.
I know as we add board members, you're going to see a lot of females get out of it. It ends up being, in tech companies, a lot of times it's the VCs, and so you're not making choices. It's who's writing the checks, but as you add your outside board members, it's going to be, I know for us, you're going to see a lot of females get added to our board, and then we hope that that's kind of what takes place.
You said something interesting when you started about the importance of networks, and I was reflecting on a conversation I had a couple weeks ago. I was in Silicon Valley talking to a venture capitalist, and we were discussing this gender parity question, and he said, I really wonder why we have no women partners in our firm. It's a large firm. And he said, but then he said, I got this idea that maybe I'm part of the problem. He said, I went to LinkedIn. He said, I knew somebody at LinkedIn, and they ran me a special report for my network. He said, I have like 5,000 contacts. He said, I wanted to know how many were men and how many were women. He said, 85% of my network were men. So when I reached out for board roles or for other roles within their organization or their portfolios, he says, I was always coming up with men's names. He immediately, he said that day, went out and started adding the women he knew to his network on LinkedIn to get that more balanced network.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
I think you said you did the same thing,
Yep.
and it's
So
truly
does
makes a difference.
parity, it's a generic word. It doesn't say gender parity. So over time, does this evolve so that, I know in our organization, and as we talk to other CEOs, are like, yeah, we want to do this with women, but we want to do it with more things as well.
Yeah.
Are you going to be instructing us and showing us and find the best practices so we can commit to other things in terms of diversity?
I think it's so important, and while my major focus has been gender, and that can go both ways, of course, depending on your industry, but typically it's women. But I always make it part of my conversation when I talk to companies that women of color, that's really important, to not just bring in white women. We want you to bring in women to your organization, but women of color have a particularly difficult time with getting those major decision-making roles and seats. And that's been shown in so many studies. So we hope that that's what's happening as well, that we're not that we're conscious of bringing in women of all diverse backgrounds. But yes, I think that Parity.org can stand for parity for minorities, both race, ethnicity, equally, men and women. And those are great goals to have for a company.
So lastly, for everyone in the audience, what can everyone in the audience do to participate?
Well, I would like to start, and wow, what a great audience. I would like to have every CEO in the audience, president, managing director, chief decision maker in the company, raise your hand. Can I see that here? That's fantastic.
Big chunk.
I would like all of those people who raise their hand to take out your cell phone, and I'd like you to go into your browser and type in www.parity.org. And you're going to be taken to our website, and you'll see a green button that says Take the Pledge Now. I'd like you to press that green button and take the Parity Pledge for your company to support gender parity.
Let's see if we can get 80 up to 160, right?
I'd like to double what we have, and I'd like to show the power of a conference like this and the power of Utah to change this profile at the top of companies. I get emails, I get a notice on my phone every time somebody takes the Parity Pledge. So I'm hoping that my phone just completely dies from all the pledges that would be taken. We also have a kiosk here in the sponsor room.
Awesome.
And individuals can also take the pledge going to the same website. But I really encourage you to think about this and think about the importance of it for your companies.
Well, Cathrin, we're inspired by you.
Thank
You
you so
inspired
much.
me. We're inspired by what you're doing, and
Yes.
it's certainly having a dramatic impact on companies here in Silicon Valley and across the globe. And I'm extremely impressed, and it's really left a deep impression upon me to see all these companies coming together here in Utah to make this pledge. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you, Cathrin.
Thank you. Thank everybody. Thanks.